squatter laws were put in place, and I think people are starting to exploit what some of those reasons are.
You're getting arrested right now?
Being arrested.
For what?
For being in my own home.
When you become a landlord, how do you think you're going to try and handle any squatter situation?
I would probably end up getting arrested.
All right, team. So we are going to review the press conference that Mayor Eric Adams of New York City just had on proposed legislation on squatters' rights, protecting homeowners.
Don't squat
Ready?
on my home.
Don't squat. Let's watch this.
Adams. He is speaking about the growing problem of squatters taking over homes, showing support for proposed legislation to help fix the problem. Investigative reporter Dan Krauth here now with more. Dan?
Sandra, we first heard from other homeowners after our reports, then not just one, but 3 lawmakers who are now taking action. And now the mayor is voicing his support, saying something has to be done to help protect homeowners in the city.
So Adele, you're getting arrested right now?
I'm being arrested.
For what?
For being in my own home.
After showing you a homeowner in Flushing who got arrested for changing the locks on her own home, to a Douglas and Queens family unable to move into the home they bought because the former caretaker refuses to leave, to a home in Brooklyn the FDNY says was set on fire by squatters, Mayor Eric Adams says he supports legislation that would help protect homeowners.
A woman's home is her castle. And I think it's imperative that we continue to protect that.
After our series of investigations, a group of city council members plan to file a proposed bill this month that would make it easier for police to remove squatters and to track how often it's happening.
We have to get rid of the 30-day rule.
Thank you for that.
The 30-day rule is insane.
And we're also tracking 2 statewide bills that have been filed that would allow police to intervene in cases instead of having to take squatters to housing court.
There was a reason that squatter laws were put in place, and I think people are starting to exploit what some of those reasons are. And I always get concerned, your largest investment is your home. That's your largest investment.
The mayor says he supports tenant rights while also supporting homeowners, a group he says often goes ignored.
Squatters' rights. So squatters' rights are a real challenge. One of the reasons that I won't invest in New York State or New York City specific is because of all the tenant rules and the squatters' rights rules. It's just way too complicated. I've heard so many horror stories of people that struggled to buy a 2 or 3 family property, and then there's a squatter there and they can't get them out for 6 months or a year, and they go bankrupt. They lose their property, they lose all their money.
Or even tenants that go there and then they don't pay their don't pay their rent. Then the squatter rights, they're under those squatter rights too.
So a squatter is a person who settles in or occupies a piece of property with no legal claim to the property. A squatter lives on a property to which they have no title, right, or lease. A squatter may gain adverse possession of the property through involuntary transfer, which is what you're talking about.
Crazy.
Being there for over 30 days, and over 30 days, I think.
Is it 30 days? I thought it was.
There's a 30-day rule.
I thought it was 30 years.
Adverse possession when you're taking over a piece of somebody's backyard by occupying it or something. But I think for what Eric Adams is trying to talk about here, the mayor, is really about an apartment where someone's in that apartment, and they may end up becoming a roommate somehow. So there's a situation I know of right now where somebody rented an apartment to a family. That family, in order to make extra income, it was like a 3-family apartment, they brought in a roommate.
Yeah.
So that roommate was not on the lease. Now that family got evicted for non-payment, but the roommate stayed behind, and now he's claiming possession of the whole apartment.
Yeah.
And he won't leave.
Is he paying?
No, he's not paying either.
So
because he knows of these rights.
So
Crazy.
In New York, squatters have rights after 30 days. That means the property owner can't change the locks on them, can't remove their belongings, and can't cut off their utilities. If they do, the owner can be arrested.
It's ridiculous.
Instead, property owners must go through the court system to get rid of
How
them.
did that even come about as a right?
That
I
makes
think
no
it was
sense.
there to protect people that got caught up in turmoil, like if there was a divorce or somebody died and maybe there was some kind of ambiguity to who is supposed to be in a place. The problem, I think, became so bad when the court systems got backed up, and now it takes 6 months for anything to happen. So in effect, there's a squatter living in your building for 6 months.
But you saw that
6
woman.
years?
She went into her own home that she owns, changed the locks, and then got arrested, handcuffs.
But I think part of that, I saw that episode, and part of that was, there's different types of squatting rights. But in this case, the police can't enforce an eviction, and the tenants who were staying at her place claimed they had a lease.
So she got arrested because she wouldn't give the keys back to the tenant. So I did that once. I actually.
Did you get arrested?
I almost got arrested.
Really?
Yes, and I wouldn't do good in jail. So I basically locked out a tenant. It was somebody who turned one of my apartments into like a boys club with gambling, and they're doing all kinds of crazy stuff. They didn't pay for 3 months. So they just left, and I changed the locks. All of a sudden, out of nowhere, they're trying to get back in, and they called the cops. Now, they knew what they were doing. They called the cops, and this is in an area that I am well known. I have a lot of other rentals, and literally the cops were like, Eric, if you don't give this guy the key right now, because he showed them a lease, okay, and you're not allowed to do self-help evictions here as a landlord. They showed him the lease. They said either give him the key or you're going to jail.
Yeah, and that happens. So
No key is worth jail time for me.
Right. So I think the squatter rights comes in when you can't prove that person doesn't have a lease, right?
Okay.
That's when it comes in.
I think it's also possession.
Well, shouldn't they have to show a lease if they have a lease?
It should be, but I think the conflict is police can't enforce an eviction. It becomes a civil matter,
Yes.
right? So that's where they call it squatter rights, but you have to prove that this person is not a legal occupant of the property.
I think it's also the belonging. So I read somewhere where if you were to get into an apartment when if the squatter were to leave for like a couple hours, and you could get in there
and then you
empty,
squat?
and you empty everything out of that apartment and then quickly change the locks. There's no proof that they're squatting, because when the cops come, it's like, well, they don't have a key, they don't have a lease, and there's nothing of theirs inside. So how are they squatting?
Okay.
So I have seen a YouTube video recently of a guy who did that. So he had a rental property that someone was squatting in. It was 3 hours away from where he lived. He went there. He went in when no one was there. He put cameras all around the house. And when the squatter came back, she obviously had no right to stay there. But he told him that if you don't pack your stuff and leave, the lock's already changed. And she couldn't fight it because he moved all her stuff out already.
Yeah, because there was none of her stuff inside.
You said something about a self-help eviction. What's that?
Self-help.
Self-performed.
You help yourself.
Oh, just you're evicting them without legal right.
Noel, that
I'm kicking you to the curb.
you are being
Got it.
evicted because you make too much Jell-O, and I don't like you. I don't know. I have no
But
idea.
in the video, though, the squatter got arrested too, right?
No, it was the woman.
It was the
I
property
thought both
owner.
of them did.
Well, if they're maybe a disorderly conduct or something, I don't know. But they arrested the homeowner for changing the locks.
Which is
Crazy.
horrible.
Yeah.
Now, just to give everyone a little history lesson.
You were a squatter?
No. Squatters' rights were brought over to the United States from British property law. They were created to ensure abandoned property could be used and not just left abandoned, as well as to protect occupants from being kicked out without proper notice. So it was to sort of save people from
Being
mean
homeless,
landlords.
Being homeless.
Each state has different laws when it comes to squatters, but in most areas, a person is classified as a squatter if they occupy a property for more than 30 days, even without permission.
So imagine, Sophia, you had a house that you had in the country. You go there only for July and August.
Right.
Okay, so August 31st, you pack up, you lock the keys, you throw Mo in the car, and you're driving back to the city, and then
That's crazy. I should go
somebody
do that
around the
to
corner
someone in the
moves
Hamptons.
into the house. And they break in and they move into the house, and they're living there now. It's nuts. And then you can't get them out.
no,
You have to evict them.
I think that's absolutely ridiculous, and I can't believe it's taken this much time for someone to actually speak about and try to change this.
Right.
Yeah, I think these laws have been in place already, but people are just taking advantage of it. Because the thing is, what if a landlord claims that their tenant that they don't like is a squatter and they just want to kick him out? What keeps a landlord from
They
going?
have a lease.
But sometimes it's a verbal agreement too. Not everybody
Yeah,
has a
sometimes
lease.
it's month to month, right?
So what keeps a
I didn't
landlord
have
from
a
going
lease.
in there in the middle of the night and kicking out their tenant and saying,
Sure.
right? So I think the laws are there to protect the tenant in this case, but people are just taking advantage of it. And I think the police need to figure out a quicker way to determine if that person has a lease or not
Absolutely.
and evict.
I don't think the law should be completely changed to protect, individuals, but I think that it should be definitely handled better. Definitely.
Yeah, there should be no squatters ever, I think. That's just my take on it.
When you become a landlord, how do you think you're going to try and handle any squatter situation?
I would probably end up getting arrested like that lady. Like that lady, because I'm not, I wouldn't, Mayor Adams said, your home is your biggest investment. It's your castle. It's your safe space. So I don't know if it would be that easy for me to just be like, okay, here, I'll handle in civil court whenever that is. No, I'm going to I would get arrested and try to,
push the subject.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Well, it's also when someone's squatting, are they taking care of the property? Are they making sure the utilities are on?
Of course
that
they're
doesn't
not.
even matter.
Yeah.
You could take care of the whatever you got, but at the end of the day, no.
They don't care. They're not paying for anything. They're just
They
squatting.
could be doing damage. So.
But I do agree, though, with squatting in abandoned places. I don't know.
So
I don't
if
know.
you abandoned, meaning someone died and the state owned it?
No, it's just completely condemned and there's homeless people living in there. But then there's a downside to that too, because they could be using it as a drug house and it's not really good for the community. So I think
they could get hurt themselves because if it's not safe, the people that are living in there could get hurt.
But so then the bigger issue is more housing for homeless people. So I don't agree. I don't.
I did read something when this was, I look at Channel 7, where we were watching right now, in the mornings, and they were saying that landlords really should visit the home every 28 days, before a month, go in, see what's going on every month. So therefore you never get to the point.
So the squatter has to prove residency for at least 30 days.
Right. So if you're a landlord and you visit your property,
take videos
every 30 days, you can prove that no one was there at a certain point or they haven't been there for 30 days.
But if you have a home somewhere, that's further out, a vacation home or something, it's harder to do.
That's why you have ring
cameras.
And you have a property manager.
You have internet, you have hotspots, whatever. It's funny, there's a case that just happened, I don't know if you remember this, about a month or so ago. A woman owned an apartment and she doesn't use it that often, so she lent this apartment to one of her other women friends. The woman friend went to go use the apartment and there were 2 squatters in there.
Ooh.
And the squatters killed her.
Where was this?
This was all over the news.
Where?
This happened. It was all over the
I
news.
thought you were going to say the woman's best friend squatted on her, but
me too.
that's what
I
I
don't even know where to
thought.
go with that one.
No, but that she moved in and she wouldn't move out.
Yeah.
No,
But-
but the squatters that were in there, they were illegal. They knew that this original
they killed
owner
her.
didn't use the apartment. The visitor who was allowed to be there was going to go use the apartment. The
Where was
squatters
this?
killed her.
What
I think it was
state?
New York City. Yeah.
It's a problem
That
in New
could
York.
be part of
Yeah,
why
it's
it's been up
huge.
there.
Yeah.
But you should always keep an eye on your properties. It's crazy. We've had people live in stuff, basements of commercial
What
buildings.
about a building that's being built?
Yeah. Do you have squatters in the Phoenix? I'll kick
I
them
mean,
out.
there's no insulation there right now, so
I'm like,
That
I'll
doesn't
kick 'em
matter.
out.
That doesn't matter.
it's kind of
There's-
wet in there, rain
So
falling.
with the way we treated our squatters is we had a squirrel that squatted. The squirrel made it out.
The squirrel made it out.
The babies didn't make it out, but the squirrel made it out. So, you don't want to leave your babies in a building. Well, I don't know where I'm going with that, but just don't squat. It's not a good idea. Get a good deal.
Yeah.
Get an apartment that you can afford.
So we'd love to know from our listeners if you've ever had issues with squatters and what you did to get those squatters out. Not if you've been a squatter. I mean, I guess if you want to tell us if you've been a squatter, but if you've had issues with squatters, what did you do? Let's become a community of people helping others.
Yeah. Well, I think what Sophia said, visit the place, or what you said,
Yeah.
visit the
Yeah.
place every 28 days. Keep a handle on what's going on in your property. I think that's really the best way to do it.
Cameras.
Your idea with the ring camera. So
Yeah.
once someone squats, and then you can go in and be like, no.
Yeah.
Yeah. But now what happens if a tenant turns into a squatter?
Yeah,
That's more common, and that happens.
And that's the bigger issue, why they don't want to completely get rid of the law,
Yeah.
So what
Because
do you do with that?
well, a landlord can't force a tenant to leave, and that's the law in New Jersey. And
You
New Jersey,
can't?
no,
Even if they're not paying.
no,
Or
you
then
can't.
you evict them for non-payment.
But eviction takes how long, right?
Yeah.
During COVID,
Yeah.
it took over 2 years.
Yeah.
So in New Jersey, it's known as a blue state that's tenant friendly. So it's terrible to be a landlord in New
Can
Jersey.
you make life a little bit difficult for them? No heat, no hot
No.
water.
You can get arrested for that.
Yeah.
There was a story once, I don't know if it's true, that Donald Trump let rats loose in an apartment building. Just like put animals in there to get rid of the people.
That. Yeah.
You know,
I heard about people doing
But is
they
that
were all-
illegal?
They weren't supposed to be
Is
there.
that illegal?
Well, how are you going to
I don't
prove
know.
it?
Well,
How are you
yeah,
gonna
I don't
prove
know if
that?
it's true.
Of course
Those
you know.
rats
It's just,
there.
it was very. I thought it was creative.
Cockroaches.
I thought it was very
Right.
creative.
Yeah, I know that
You didn't turn
is.
the water off. You didn't turn the heat off. You just
You let nature
them-
take its
But
course.
hey, if you're not paying rent, I think you could deal with a few rats. That's what's gonna. And the
Yeah,
problem
or
happening.
cockroaches. Like,
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
get those people out.
I'd rather.
But
not.
it becomes a real issue when a tenant doesn't pay for 6 months. A landlord doesn't have immediate recourse at all, and you can go broke. And the court system's not on your side. So I think they do need to revisit how these things are done. But the city and the state doesn't care, right? They just leave it on the landlord.
Because the house is already paid for. The taxes already, they're already getting the money from you, regardless of who is.
Well, even
who's
if they
there.
don't, because they won't if you can't make your mortgage payments, but they don't care, right?
But you're still
Someone will
backed
pay
up
it
in
because
that.
when they sell it, it'll come off the
Right.
sale price.
Exactly.
So the government always gets their money.
So
when it
we're
comes
gonna
to property
keep
taxes.
an eye on this, and when people leave comments, we'll answer, and we will revisit this whole squatters issue when New York passes or puts forth.
Vet your tenants.
legislation.
Vet your tenants wisely.
Yes.
Don't put in questionable tenants. Make it harder to get people in. Don't be afraid to miss a month of rent. I know it's tough. I know
But
when
get
you're
a good
starting
tenant
out,
rather than,
it's-
right.
You need every penny, and it's tough, but you will regret putting in the wrong tenants, so don't do it.
Thank you.
And even if you put in the right tenants, it'll still happen.
Yeah.
Like it's happening to me right now.
Aw.
Yeah.
Oh, so you do have a squatter story.
Not a squatter, but they fell behind on payments, and it's tough. I can't do anything.
Evict them.
I can, but the time it takes to go, it's a long, lengthy process. We went through that with our commercial unit too.
Yeah, we evicted them.
We did, but we still have to go after them for the
True, but we
back
still
payment.
evicted them. The trick is evict on the first day you can start. If you give someone a grace period and they're supposed to pay on the 1st and their grace period's till the 5th, start eviction right away. You have to show the tenant that you mean business. Just like if you have a credit card and you don't pay that bill, they slap that late fee on you. They go to your credit report. Credit cards mean business. You need to do the same thing as a landlord. You need to create respect from your tenant. And the only way to do that is to start eviction right away. Remember, they have the right to pay it. They can stop that eviction at any time.
If
I
they
think-
pay.
I think, well, for commercial, it's different, right? Commercial is quicker, much quicker for
It's
evictions.
quicker, but
Yeah.
you can still start the
I was gonna
time.
ask that.
True, but I think with residential
It's
evictions, it's not
harder.
only harder, but at the same time, if a tenant says, I need until the 15th to pay, what ended up happening to me is she would pay towards the end of the month, every month, just because it would align with her pay schedule. So I said, okay, you don't have to pay on the 1st. Eventually, she missed the
And
second
then it
month,
got- right.
and then it became 2 months, and then she lost her job. So what am I supposed to do?
Start eviction.
Start eviction.
So I could do that, but then she's ready to move out. I'm dealing
So let
at
her out.
sometimes,
Tell her to get out.
right? So at sometimes, if they cooperate, I'm willing to work with them. You have to go straight to the
The
legal.
problem is that if you don't file the eviction, she can change her mind at any time, and you're stuck. You
That's
have
a-
to
that's a big
file
risk
the
right now.
eviction. You
Yeah.
have to file. You can still say, "Hey, it's a technicality. We had to file that paperwork. I still love you. I'm still going to work with you, but I still had to file the paperwork." You
I may
don't
have to do
file, you're hurting yourself.
Then I'm taking a word for it.
Next
right?
week, Omar, please fill us in on exactly what you're doing now with the.
File.
It's happening this month, so yeah.
So
File.
let's
I
find
got a
out
good
next
attorney for
week.
you.
All right, guys. Thanks so much. Thanks for watching this episode. Now, don't forget to like, subscribe, and leave a comment. And we'll see you next time.